Okay everybody, this is my next project. And this here is a Red Max blower. Model number EB431. This camera doesn't focus too well, but we're gonna do a pan around it so you guys have an idea of what it looks like. Somebody had this for sale. Has it broken? It does not work. It's missing this part right here. These are the straps apparently by the looks of it. Okay. You know what I noticed about this? The trigger is right here. So this flops down apparently. Somehow. It's probably seized right now. But this flops down. And this is your idle and your throttle pretty much. And this too is kind of seized. There is probably an on-off switch somewhere around here, I don't know. This is the first time that I have been messing around with a blower. So when I look at the carburetor area, you know what else I noticed? This thing has to be a barrel type carburetor. I can see the primer bulb is underneath there. And you know what? I'm going to try to pull this. Oh, so I can pull it just a little bit. Okay, so look at that. So what this tells me is that if I can pull it just a little bit. Okay, so what this tells me is if I can pull this, that means the piston is turning, the flywheel is turning, which also means the piston is not seized into the cylinder, and there's probably nothing wrong with the cylinder at all, but I don't know that. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to do a complete teardown and rebuild. There's a sticker right there, I don't know if you can see it. It's not focusing too well. Anyways, we're going to do a complete teardown and rebuild. So everything around here is going to come off loose. I'm going to strip it down right to the engine. I'm going to clean out air filter, the engine, the carburetor, the gas tank. I'm probably going to replace the fuel lines in there. And because this is separate, something else I've never seen before, I'm probably going to free this up a little bit so that way it comes down. I'm going to check the wiring for continuity, and we're gonna get into there. That's where the air goes in. I am assuming that's where the air goes in. I do not know what this part is, but you know what? I'm going to download the user manual for this entire thing to find out how it works. This is my next project. I'm happy to be working on it, happy to be showing you all it. So without further ado, let's get going. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take off this cover here. But before I tell you what I did, I went and soaked everything in WD-40, sprayed the entire thing all the way around, inside out, all around, with WD-40 to loosen that grease film buildup. So that way it would make it easier to clean up later on. So in order to take this cover off, there's a little flap under here. You just lift, pull it under, and just like that it lifts up. See? And this is what it looks like. This filter comes out. It looks like it's an original filter, and this is going to be washed out, so it's probably not supposed to look like that. This here looks like a screen. Wow, that was just sitting in there just like that, eh? Look at that. Wow. Okay. And break. Alright. Now it looks like we need cross heads to get at these, and it looks to me like somebody had done this before. Somebody took a screwdriver right there and took this cover out. So what this is, because of the fact that we know it is a barrel style carburetor just by looking at the top. This is our choke mechanism. This choke is not attached to the carburetor. This type of choking mechanism is attached to the air filter. So when you look and you press up and down, it's just a gate that restricts the air going into the carburetor, is the intake. Okay, that's all that is. This is gonna come off. We're gonna have a closer look at this entire arrangement when I do that. Okay, so as I just found out, by using that and loosening this, that is attached to that screw. I don't know if you can see it turning, but that entire screw that I'm touching is this right here. So that screw is holding together this and this to this part right here. Okay, so once I take that screw out on both sides, this is going to come off, this is going to be loose, and this is going to still be attached. Alright? And when this does come loose, this is still going to be attached to the throttle cable as well as the fuel lines. I'm going to leave them on there. Okay, so this is what it looks like when I got that cover off. As I had just said before, it's a barrel style carburetor, and when I follow this cable line here, it comes up to here. Now with my WD-40, I went and sprayed everything like I said. This can now turn, but you see how it's spooling up right here? That means nothing is changing here. So when I turn this, when I go up and down, that thing is supposed to come open and closed, and it's not. So what that tells me is this line is seized. This needs to be whatever, cleaned out, but I could probably force this open, and I can't even do that. So what I got to do is I got to disconnect this part here, and then this will probably free up on its own, but this cable needs to be lubricated. So looking at our choking mechanism, these are the long screws that I was talking about that hold everything together. Okay, so our choking mechanism that you can see right there, open, closed, open, closed. So choke on, run, choke on, run. Okay, this will be cleaned up a little bit later, and I'm surprised that there is not a gasket from here to here. But there is a slight one right there, that black O-ring, which acts as a gasket. Okay, now I'm going to put everything nice and neatly right there. And then later what I'm going to do is wipe everything down with these cloths. These cloths I get from the dollar store really cheap, like $2, $1.25. They're really cheap, and I use them a lot for cleaning everything up. So now I'm going to loosen this off. And normally there's a gasket on this side between the intake and the carburetor, which is nice to see. And wow, there's some cool little wiring right there. I did not know that. I don't know what that is. That has something to do with the on-off switch, I assume. Okay, that red one goes somewhere underneath. But this wire here connects somewhere else. So there's two wires here. These wires connect to this somehow. So if this could come down, which it can't, I don't know why. But you know what? Oh, there we go. So I have to pull it out and then lay it down. So it's got, yeah, we're just gonna pull it like that. Okay, so that's how that works. Okay, so there we go. I found the on-off switch. That red button is the on-off switch. Okay, so those two wires go to that switch. That is the kill switch. I just figured that out right now. Okay, all right. Okay, so what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to disconnect the cable. I'm going to disconnect the fuel lines. We're going to have a look at the carburetor. Okay, this is the carburetor that came out of that. So, I had a hard time freeing up this cable inside this line here, so I had to take it out as a complete unit, but this is it. I can tell that somebody has tried to twist this open before, because there's markings right there. And I can tell somebody's just tried to mess with it. There is identification numbers on this, which is right here. And the numbers that those read are, let's see here, WYK67D717. It does not tell me if it's Walbro or whatever, but I'm pretty sure if I looked up online, it would tell me. So, when I pressed, oh, that primer bulb is very, very stiff. It's not supposed to be stiff, holy shit. I had to exert a lot of effort just to press that down. So, we're gonna try to, I'm gonna fight with this some more to get this disconnected up there so I can take this all apart. What I wanna show everybody is inside the cylinder wall here. You can't see it too well with this camera, but I can see in there, and I can see vertical lines on the cylinder wall. I would probably, as I told before, somebody's got this apart to look at this, but there is lines on the cylinder, or the piston. So what that tells me is it's scratched up like hell inside. I'm gonna have to look at that. Yeah, so let me get to that eventually. So I'm gonna work on this for now. Okay, I got that cover off right there, and you can probably see this a little bit better now. But yeah, you see those lines on there I was talking about? Scorched, scratched. Look at that. See that? It's not supposed to look like that. Okay, so now we know what we're dealing with. You know what? What I can do is I can pop the spark plug off. I can put a compression tester on there, and then I can give this a fuel. Boom. Boom, 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 boom. And we can test the compression to see how this is doing. So hold on. Okay, so I got the compression tester hooked up to the blower. I wanted to show everybody first the spark plug. This spark plug has been beat up a lot. When I looked at the marks on here, somebody has taken this off, put it on, taken it off, put it on, and it looks like a not bad spark plug. But you know what? I'm going to have to replace this because who knows how old it is, who knows the condition. It could probably not be running because of this. So yeah, we'll just put that aside, and I'm gonna set this up in a way where you can see the, when I pull this, you should see a reading here. So here we go. Okay, so I don't know if you were watching me pull that, but I lost count. As you can see, after several pulls, it is maintaining that reading just a little bit. If we watch it a little bit further, we might see the needle go down. If there was no compression on this, the needle would go down considerably, and that reading would be a lot lower. So what that tells me is if we have that much compression after that many pulls and the needle is not going down, then there is nothing wrong with compression. But we're going to take a look at the piston and the cylinder anyways, so we're going to do a complete teardown and rebuild. You see this button right here? This is a relief valve of this. Sets it back down to 0. Okay? So this is going to come out, and then we're gonna start messing around, taking off this, taking off this, taking off this, okay? And the gas tank. We're gonna do that right now. Okay, so after taking off this cover with those 4 bolts, I get this. So when I peel this off, it peels off nicely. There's nothing attaching it to it. Put that right back onto there. We can see the inside of the blower. So this is where the air comes out to the arm right here. There's a hole here and a hole here, but it looks like it just goes straight through anyways, because I can pretty much put my fingers right through that. You can see that. So I'm not exactly sure what the purpose of this part here is. It's probably just to filter out just a little bit more debris. And yeah, so now continue with everything else. Okay, so after taking that cover off, this is what we have. Alright? After looking at this very carefully, it seems to me this engine can come right out without touching anything else to do with this blower right here. Okay, so I have a hex key right there, right there. On the other side, there is one right on the bottom, right under there, right. I don't know if you can see that. There's a lot of garbage and debris in the way. And you know what? There is also a bracket. There's a bracket right underneath here which is attached to the engine. So you gotta get underneath there and go crank, 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 alright? And it looks like there's 2 bolts, one on this side and one on the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts holding this engine to the blower. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that out, strip it down. I'm just going to give you guys a pan one last time just in case there is something that you see that you don't have. Alright, remember this is a complete tear down and rebuild, so all these pieces are going to be laying in front of me. Oh, and numbers. We got some more numbers here. Numbers. Right here, there's a number right there. Okay, it's a different number than those ones. Okay, so I'm gonna pay attention to this. I'm gonna try to turn my camera this way so you can see them. I don't know if you can see that, but it says G4K120, number 714635. I don't know how, maybe that has to do with the engine. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna go online and I am going to look at that. Okay, here we go. Okay, everybody, this is the bottom view of the blower. In order to get this gas tank off, I just noticed that these 2 screws are holding it in. And then I noticed this. So, this is the part, the screw that is holding that bracket together. So, the engine that is sitting on that bracket can come off by taking off this part right here. So, okay. Just wanted to point that out to before. Oh, and the bolts that are right there are these ones. They come off with a hex key. They're this long. There's no marking on my hex key to find out what the measurement for that, what size of that is, but that's fine. I'm gonna take these off and take out this so I can get this engine off. Okay, this is what it looks like when the gas tank is not in there and that bolt right there has been taken out. As you can see, it separates right at that joint there. Okay, now this is the gas tank. This is what it looks like underneath the gas tank. So these screws were in there. The nuts are embedded into the gas tank. They will not come out. Don't try to take them out because it looks like on the other side of the gas tank it looks like they are fixed together permanently. So don't mess with them. Whenever you take something apart with the nuts and the bolts, put the nuts and the bolts back together so you don't lose them. Like these parts here, they go exactly right there. I'm gonna know that. This is the gas tank. What I'm gonna do later with this is I'm gonna clean it up on the outside. I'm gonna flush it out on the inside, and one of these is attached to the fuel filter. There's a clear one and there is a not so clear one. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna either, oh yeah, you know what, I'm gonna have to replace these no matter what. These are kind of stiff. Now they're not meant to move a whole lot, but this one right here, the clear one, is stiff, and if I was to bend it a little bit more it would probably break. So if they're stiff, replace them. Let's look. I'm gonna take the fuel cap off. there. We're gonna look inside the fuel tank, and whoa, oh my gosh, there is some gross stuff in there. I don't know if you can see that. There's some kind of brown liquid in there. I don't know what that is. The best way that I can clean that out is if I take a handful of little tiny screws and dump them in there and then shake this out. That is the best way that I can use to clean the gunk that is on the inside of a gas tank, and it looks like it's been sitting in there for a while. Whatever that is, it could be oil, it could be anything, but we're gonna get back to that, okay? So, there's 4 of these screws holding this together, and the other one is deep inside right here. So, that one's out, that one's out, that one's out. The other one is right here, and it's really hard to get into. It might be just a little too awkward for me to get it with this one. It kind of is. This flap is in the way. So what that means is I gotta take off this muffler to get at that nut, so this engine come off this blower. Okay? Just so you know what you're looking forward, this is what I'm doing. Okay, so the muffler is off, and these 2 bolts are at the top, which go through here. These 2 are at the bottom, which go through here and right there. So those 2 small ones are right there and right there. Okay, now this flap here is the, well, just comes off just like that, eh? Let's look at it. There is no visible damage in this area here, which we would need to be concerned about. It looks fine. Now we can get at that nut. Now let's look at the rest of it. Remember how I looked at this hole here, the intake, and we could see the scoring? We're gonna look at the other side now. Oh yes, look at that. And what do you know? There's more, there's scoring there too. I don't know if you can see it too well with this camera, but you can sort of see lines there, the vertical lines. I can see them clearly, but it does not affect the compression for whatever reason. Okay, right, so let's look at the muffler. This is the entire muffler housing with all the garbage and stuff coming out of it. This part here, this plate comes off. I don't know what the purpose of that is. It looks like the exhaust is right here out of this hole. So I'm gonna clean this up entirely. There's no other markings on it, no other numbers that I can notice. So therefore, we just put it aside, clean it up, and carry on with this. So I'm gonna just do a small pan so you all have an idea of what it looks like with the muffler off. Okay, remember to put your screws back exactly where they came from so you don't lose them. Alright, here we go. Okay, so now we are ready to pull this engine off of this blower. Remember that it's going to come out as much as it's going to come up over this nut. So you're going to see me tinker around with it. I'm going to put my camera right there just so you have an angle of what I'm doing. Okay. Alright. Okay, so this is attached into here. So as much as I wanted to avoid taking this all apart, now I got to. So this is attached to the blower component somewhere in there. I gotta figure that out. So I guess I'm gonna attack these here joints on this part here just to access that. Okay, so this is what it looks like when that cover's off. In order to get this cover off of there, They are just being held in with little push things. You can literally just pop them right out by hand. And there's 5 of them. Okay? Now to get at my engine part, it looks to me like I got some bolts here to take out, and once I get into there, there's 2 insides to take out in the center. So I'm gonna try to attack this. I might be able to, I might not be able to, but we're gonna find out. And of course, I run into problems. In order for me to get that stupid nut out, this little piece here needs to come off. That little piece there is a part of this. In order for this to come off, those 4 bolts have to be loose. I loosened them already, and you can see that they're held there. This is what holds the straps together. So once this comes out, I should be able to access that stupid top nut. Okay, so after getting that screen out, I took out those 2 bolts right there, and those 2 bolts are holding this plastic piece to the engine. Okay, so those 2 bolts are these ones right here. Okay, this was the plastic piece that was over the front there. In order to get the engine free, these 2 need to come out to free from this plastic right here, and now we can pull off the engine. So here we go. Okay, I'm just setting up my camera just so I can get a better view of that. There we go. Ooh, awesome. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. There we go. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. The engine is apart. Ooh. Alright. This is it. I'm going to stand this up a little bit better, but this is what that looks like. The wiring that was on there, it's just pull apart. It just pulls apart with those connections right there. You got to pay attention to those 2 so that way you don't lose which wire goes where. They're color coded, so the black goes with the black and the red goes with the red. And I'll give you a chance to look at everything here. It looks a little bit of a mess, but like I said, I'm going to clean it up. Remember how I was talking about getting that part off right here? Well, it's right here. Okay, so those bolts and nuts attached to this part here, and I just put those back in so I don't lose them. But this is them. See that? And now it's just all to get that stupid 1 nut off. Okay, so I'm gonna just set everything up here a little bit better. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, using my cell phone this time because my actual camera got a little too hot. So this is it. The engine. We're just gonna do a pan of everything here so you have an idea of what it looks like when it's completely out. Whoa, you can sure see that scoring a whole lot better. Okay, look at that. Numbers, more numbers. Those numbers are important. This engine was made in Japan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my phone down and I'm going to try to pull this cord so you can see this in action. Okay. There we go. Is that nice? Okay. So, air's coming through here. The piston is going up and down. The exhaust comes out through here. The crank the crank shaft turns this part here. These two nuts hit the turbine of the blower. So what's next is I'm going to take off this rewind. I'm going to separate the cylinder head. And the way you do that is there is 4 of those hex bolts all around. After that, I'm going to take out these 2, separate them, and the way you do that, the same hex bolts. There's 4 of them right there, one here, and one here. And we pull it apart. And then we are able to look at the piston, the connecting rod, the crankshaft. Okay, this part comes off too because there's a nut there. So this nut comes off in a special way. You just got to make sure that the other side there is, you got to grab the other side, and we need to untighten this nut. Oh, I want to show everybody the ignition coil. The ignition coil is what causes the spark on your spark plug. And it connects to those 2 wires. All right. Okay, so I'm going to start working on that right now. Okay, so after taking off the cylinder head, we can now have a clear picture of the piston. So this is the exhaust, or hold on. I got it mixed up. Yeah. This here is the intake side, the side of the air filter. This is the exhaust side of the muffler. Now, inside the cylinder, the wear is exactly where those 2 openings are. This is the intake, right there. You're seeing that hole. This is the exhaust. Okay. When you look at every place else around it, it's nice and clean and tidy. There's no damage outside anywhere else of the cylinder. It's just right there. Now when I feel around there, there is no rough grooves. That part in there is still smooth. There's nothing that is sharp. It's not abrasive. There's a slight wear right here in the middle here, but when I go up here I can feel it. Yeah, this is not the first time I've stuck my finger into a nice hole. So if you're messing around with this and you take this off, oh man, which one's the exhaust and which one's the muffler side? Oh, it's the bolts. Those 2 bolts are always going to be for the muffler. This side that has the tiny hole in it is always going to be for the air filter. Okay, so that's how you know. Now, the piston, let's look at that. There's a little arrow that points toward the muffler side. Now, that looks like it's scored to hell. So, when we did our compression test, it was like really high up into the 150 area, right? But when you look at the piston rings, even if I was to feel them, there is no major abrasions on that friggin' piston ring. The piston rings are what creates the pressure inside your cylinder. And I'm just feeling around the piston rings. So when you look at let's see here, just right here where the piston rings go like that, you see how they're kind of grooved on the ends there? When they're in the cylinder, they go really tight together and they expand out on purpose to touch the cylinder walls. Now, when I look at everything else here, it doesn't, yeah, there is rough ridges right there. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to take this piston out and look at it a lot more clearly. And in order to get these two apart, those 4 bolts right there are really in there very tight. I'm going to find a way to get those out, but that nut that is right there, I took that out. That is right here. This nut here is a 9/16 inch nut. Oh, and you see that garbage there? That garbage is what I took out when I removed the rewind. There's good garbage in there. Yuck. Gross. So that's going to be cleaned up right now. I'm just going to try to fight with those 4 bolts to get them out, so I can pull this apart so I can get that piston out. Okay, so while I figure out how the hell I'm gonna get those 2 bottom bolts out, I'm thinking about heating it up there, taking it there like a flame torch. That gasket right there I am able to replace because you can make a new one with your gasket material, so I'm gonna do that later. I'm gonna get the flame going, heat that up. For now, I'm gonna mess around with this carburetor. Now, after hitting it with some WD-40 in there, I was able to free it up just a little bit. You see that? It's not changing right there very much. And I can't pull it out. So, what that means is I gotta mess around with this a little bit more. I'm gonna try to get a pair of pliers and stuff it in there, try to free it up so I can get this out, so I can get that screw. Okay? If I can get this out a little bit, I can get that cable off of there and this can come out. So what I'm trying to get the stupid cable off here. So before I can work on this, I need to get rid of this so I can get at that screw. Okay, so here's a carburetor, completely stripped apart. This part here goes onto there like that. This is the barrel that lets it in, right? That little pin goes into that part there. So there's nothing wrong with this. This is fine. This part here is somewhat clean. That gasket right there is nice. This part here needs to be replaced. As you can tell, it is worn. It looks like it's being sucked in there quite a lot. So I do have the thing to replace this. And there's some gunk right there. It's not supposed to be there. I'll take that out. I'll flush that out. Alright. Now, we're going to take the small end of the WD-40 and go through all the holes one by one and flush them out, including that little pin there. This here part will do the same. This here is replaceable. As you can tell, it doesn't go up and down like it's supposed to. It's just kind of flat. I do have the part to replace that. This is a Japanese part. That screen there is clean. This comes out very carefully. Once again, we're going to go and spray all those holes to make sure that they are nice and flushed out, including that part there. This is the air. Oh, yeah, this is the fuel lines. So this is the fuel coming in. This is the one going out. And you'll see more of the components once this part here comes out. This here is pretty simple. This is what the primer bulb attaches to. Okay, so air comes in through that, goes up through there and sucks it through that hole. This hole here needs to be flushed out too. And our primer bulb. Okay, like I said, it was stiff. Yeah, it's real stiff. This thing's gonna crack. So it's got to be replaced. Oh, so when I do this to it, it looks fine. If I was to squish it, ooh, doesn't look like it's gonna crack when I do that. Right? Let's do it again here. I'll push it down. It takes forever for it to pop up. Oh, look at that. See that? Right there. I just found it. When I push down, a crack formed. Okay? That's why you don't reuse primer bulbs. So even though I did all this, there's a crack right there. So this primer bulb was toast. We're going to get rid of it. We're going to replace the gasket on this part here. We're going to replace that. We're going to replace this part right here. And we're going to flush it out with WD-40. I was able to get this off. It was a bit of a pain in the ass, but I was able to force it. I got this line greased and flushed with WD-40, so all we have to do is just put this together. And once again, I gotta go deal with those 2 bolts on that. Alright, so I have myself a repair kit for those. And I have a lot of them, so they're not just one. I have a whole bunch more. Okay? And I got them nicely organized into here. And I got the pictures of them so I know which one that I'm looking for. See that? Okay. So I'm just going to put that back into my stash there. I'm going to take this out for you all to look at. Okay, so before I go and put these onto here, you need to pay attention to how they go on, okay? So, see these little tabs right here? Right here and right here? This one is the top part, this is the bottom part. So, this is how they go on, okay? This goes on top of this, just like that. Actually, well, it's backwards. It goes on there like that, okay? And then it goes on top of this as a whole, like that. Alright, don't get these mixed up. Don't put this one on the bottom and this one on top. It's not going to work. Okay? So, the same goes for this one. Alright? So when we look at it, this part here is on the top, the gasket part is underneath this. So, this is the gasket part, this is the part that goes on top. So it goes onto there like that, and then as a whole, moves onto that. Okay? Now, some of you might be saying that it's a little bit different because of that hole right there. But, you know what, after looking at it really close-like, this probably is one piece, but I think I can get away with just this. Now, underneath here is the components for the rest of these here, like the metal pieces. And you're going to notice that when I take that off. Alright, so this is what they look like when the old pieces have been taken off. So, this is old, this is old, okay? I just flushed these out. All the holes are cleaned. Ooh, it's windy. Yeah. So when you go to put these back on, you might notice some black markings around the edge here. That's probably because I used glue to put them on. This is what the underside of this looks like. See that? All the holes have been flushed out, which is really nice. Cool. I could have, well, I could just... That's, it's pretty good. This is the numbers. Oh, yeah. The numbers are right there. I don't know if you can see them. But that's it for identification marks. Just nowhere on this carburetor did it tell me that it was a Walbro or Red River, but because it's a Japanese model, made in Japan, Kometsu Kola Homachinda Bakawawala. It's probably not on here. So now I'm gonna put everything together really carefully, and then we're gonna make this carburetor drink. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So this is all going together and we're going to test it out. Okay, now that we got the entire carburetor put together like it's supposed to, we're going to hook it up to the fuel lines and see if it drinks the gas. And the way that we do that is we go to our mass supply of fuel lines of different sizes and we put them into here. And so when we press the primer bulb, one of these is sucking in, which attaches to the fuel filter, and the other is to return. So you're going to see when you look at the fuel line, it's going to suck some up and then put some back in. Okay? So here we go. Hey, let me get this set up a little bit better. Okay, so I got everything all set up here. This is the carburetor drink testing video. So this part here is the one that attaches to the air filter, which sucks up the gas. This is the return. When I press the primer bulb, you're going to see the gas flow up to here, into here, and through here, and back into the... It's also going to fill up the primer bulb at the same time. So I'm going to... Here we go. Pressing in. See that? See the primer bulbs filling up? Now it's returning. You see how that works? Pressing the primer bulb circulates the gas inside the carburetor once everything is flowing the way that it is supposed to be. There is no leakage anywhere on the carburetor, anywhere else here when I press that. Now, normally it's like this. It's hanging upside down when we're pressing it. Okay? It's kind of hard to get that primer bulb on that blower machine as I had seen. But this is it. This is how it's supposed to look. When you look at the lines coming in and out when I'm pressing it, there's no air bubbles. There's no air bubbles coming into the carburetor, which is good. If there's air bubbles coming into the carburetor, you got a leak somewhere along the line. And there should be zero, close to zero, air bubbles coming out of the carburetor on the return. If there is air bubbles, that means there's a leak somewhere inside the carburetor. But as you can see, it's flowing really awesome. And when I press that, there's no leaks anywhere. There's no blue fluid anywhere on the anywhere. So this looks pretty good. So normally on a carburetor, your primer bulb should be full like that. It should look exactly like that with a tiny air bubble in there. If it is half full, then there might be a bit of a leak, but this has been rebuilt, brand spanking new. This can now go back into the blower, and now I am going to work on getting that stupid bolts out so we can get a look at that piston. Everything else here has been cleaned out. I still got to go get my nuts and bolts to flush the inside of this out. And the blower part there, I got to wash that out, clean that up. Everything is looking like it's coming together. Okay, so now we came to the part we're going to clean out the gas tank. And these two parts here, they can come out. They're probably just pressured into there, which is not a big deal. These are the lines that were in there. This fuel filter just looked exactly like this when I took it out. And it's all sticky, it's gummy, it's sticking to my towel right there, so it's gone, which means the fuel line itself is gone, which means this here is the same material that the primer bulb was made out of, and it's kind of stiff. So even when I play around with it like I am, it's not really as flexible. So we're going to get rid of these two lines, and this, we're just going to get rid of that. And as I was saying before, when you look inside the gas tank there, it's kind of gross looking. So you see these small parts? Those small parts are going to go into here, and then I'm going to shake the hell out of them. That's going to loosen all that stuff up there and clean it out. Plus a shot of WD-40 to loosen it all up, and then I'm going to flush it out, and then we're going to do a leak test. We're going to put water inside of there to see if there's any leak anywhere inside the gas tank. Okay, so when we look inside the gas tank, there's just a little bit of stuff in there, but everything else has been taken out. And this is what came out of the gas tank. There's a, yeah, you can see that brown stuff that's on my nuts and bolts and stuff in there. But yeah, I wouldn't put a shot of gas into there just to make it more liquidy. But now the gas tank is like completely, but that brown stuff that's in there, I might take a brush and scrub it in there, see if I can get that out. But all in all, I can now do the inside, wipe that up a little bit better, and then we can wash it out, do the leak test. Which, after doing this, it doesn't seem to be that there is any leaks, so we can rule that out. There is no leak or crack anywhere inside this gas tank. Okay, leak test. This is full of water. And a lot of you are saying, or cringing about putting water inside a gas tank. But we're doing this to look for leakage because that would be important. As you can see, nothing is dripping anywhere. Okay, so now we can empty all the water out and dry it out and put everything back together for the gas tank. Yay! Replace those fuel lines. Okay, so I found a brand spanking new filter that I had from my other spare parts. This goes into the gas tank, which attaches to this part here. One very important thing I want to point out to everybody. These two holes on these two black things, I'm just going to call them things for now. This one is smaller, this one is bigger. Okay, so this is a smaller hole, this is a bigger hole. But when you look at the carburetor, you can start to see the difference too, that this one here is bigger, this one here is smaller. Okay, so this is sucking up the fuel, this is returning it. Alright? Make sure that you differentiate which one is which. This is the one that I attached to the filter, which is coming out to the, right there. See, that's sucking up the gas. This goes into that small hole. This one is just a return, putting the gas back into the tank. Okay, and I labeled it. So, when I put this all back together, you can see where they go when I hook them up. Okay, everybody. These two holes on the bottom, I cannot get out. No matter how hard I try, it's because of that crud on the bottom. A lot of you might be saying, just take some heat to right here and take them out. The problem is the heads on those two bolts are already stripped because I tried the exact same size and I reefed on them pretty hard. So they're not coming out ever again. So after looking at the piston, as a result of the compression check that we did, we find that this was able to put out 150 psi when I pulled it that many times. Well, I forgot how many times I said before, but these piston rings are what is keeping that seal, and there's two of them. And because of the compression that we had, that tells me that this should be able to produce a good spark. When I looked at the cylinder here, this being the intake, it's clean in there, right? You see the mouth is clean. On here, it's supposed to be burnt and whatever, but when you look at the top there are scratch marks. So what that tells me is that somebody probably was screwing around with the muffler side, put something into there, and then scratched the hell out of it. They probably either did it on purpose or accidental, but those marks are on both sides of the intake and the exhaust of the cylinder and the cylinder wall. So we're going to leave it. It looks like hell, but if it's able to hold 150 psi like I showed you, when we do the compression check, it just might work. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is now all going to be put back together. So I'm gonna work on that, and the next video you see will be it running. Okay, before I put the rewind on, I want to show everybody exactly how it works. So when you frick, I gotta put my phone down. Okay, here we go. So when you pull this slowly, it raises up and spins. See that? I'm pulling it out. There is no centripetal force involved in that. You're just pulling out slowly. It grabs onto that part there, causes it to go up. When it goes up like that, this part here pushes against this here. It causes it to turn. Alright? So that's how that works for the rewind. Okay? Okay, so I got a new spark plug in here. I decided to put the checker spark plug. Checker just checks for spark. So one end goes into the machine parts to whatever, and the other clicks onto that, and you pull the rewind, and there should be a red flash right there. So I've got my camera rigged up. Hopefully you can see that flash. Just kinda... There is a flash. I can see it. I'm not sure if you can. But yes, in fact there is. So there is spark. Okay everybody, this is it put back together. As you can see, it is nice and shiny. I did not put this part on intentionally, but I wanted to show everybody the fuel filter. As soon as I started to press this, it was starting to crumble. So I made new filters, same ones, same size, out of regular sponges. Okay? You can use a sponge because technically that's exactly what that is. So I used a whole bunch of sponges to make the fuel filter, or the air filter, which you can just see underneath. See? There's a whole bunch in there. So put that back onto there. Okay, now we know we have spark. We know the carburetor runs and it drinks. This is the way it looks like when you hook up the lines properly. There is gas in there. I just put some gas in there. I don't know if you can see it. There's gas in there. It's been flushed out, dried out properly. All the throttle cable, like I was talking about. Oh, you know what? I want to show you this part here. You see how that throttle cable hits against there? It's like at a really bad angle. That's what was causing this to be hard to turn. So when you see me turn that, it now moves freely. But you know what? That little elbow right there is what's causing the cable to bind. So that's a bad design right there. But this is it working. Okay? So, Frank, I should have, yeah, I forgot. This is either open or closed, but we're gonna figure that out, because now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to start it. Before I do, I'm gonna hit the primer bulb. Okay, I'm gonna put my camera down. I'm gonna hit the primer bulb. Here we go. I'm pressing it. You know what? I probably got them backwards, which is not a big deal. Because I put it in upside down, that's why. So all you need to do is just switch them around. This one goes onto there like that. And this one goes onto here. Like that. There we go. Now it's working. Okay. Pressing the primer bulb, fuel is flowing through like you can see it. Yay! Now, I'm gonna put the cover back on. Okay, now you're gonna see the video of me starting it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it on choke. Choke means you're restricting the air into the carburetor. This is run, which means all the air is now going into the carburetor, okay? So we're gonna choke it, and then we're gonna let this rumble for a little bit, and then but you know what? I got the owner's manual on this, and it will tell me which one is run and which one is not. But you're gonna see me mess around with this to get this working. And once I get that working, I'm gonna have to make some adjustments on the carburetor for the idle. But here we go. So, fireball, choke. Run. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, this runs perfectly. This is beautiful. Okay, so as I found out, this is high, this is low, high, low, and as you just seen, the kill switch does work. So what that means is there is no carburetor adjustments that are needed on this unit. But what I will do is I will put this strap back onto it. Now the only thing is it's missing is this part here. That is the only thing this is missing. It attaches onto this, and I got to get the regular arm for that. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, this is a success. When I looked at the pictures, there is an attachment that replaces this, and there's like some big bulky thing that has to do with this blower, which I don't know what that is. But anyways, this now works. I am gonna let my friend know. He will watch the video. The gasoline on this is 50 to 1. And that will be all for now. Thank you for watching. This has been Blackjack 98 Enterprises.